All right,
Yep.
3, 2, 3, 2, 1. Hi, this is William Ramsey. Welcome to William Ramsey Investigates. On tonight's show, I have a very special guest, a returning guest. His name is Vyzygoth. We talked on March 6th. I uploaded that, so fairly recently, about 2 weeks ago. And we're just going to follow up and talk about some of his experiences and some of the interesting personalities he interviewed and met. I know we talked about Dave McGowan on our former interview, so this is a part two. And we're just going to also cover maybe some current events as well for about an hour. So, Vyzygoth, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Awesome.
Nice talking to you again.
No, thanks for agreeing to join me. So maybe we can just kind of pick up where we left off and talk about your interesting. I know that you've come in contact with so many different types of people, and maybe we can just start use that as a starting point.
Well, I tell you what, it's an icebreaker. You'll appreciate this. I don't know if you remember a character out there by the name of Stu Webb.
I do, yes.
You do?
He's still around.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he's still around.
I don't know. I mean, I don't go those ways anymore. I kind of pulled up the zip and all that stuff. But I had Stu on a couple of times, and this is when we're on the AM stations. And in the studio where Harry and I did the shows, we were kind of catty corner from one another. He was at a table. He had his pull down mic. I had mine. I had to run the board. Well, Stu goes into one of his colorful discourses, and he says, "Yeah." He goes, "One day," he goes, "I saw at the foot of my bed a 700-pound Baphomet with a bifurcated tail." And I looked across at Harry, and Harry looked at me, and we just dropped our heads like, "Oh Lord."
Right.
I mean, this is going out over the air too. It isn't like it's a podcast or anything like that, which goes out also. But I mean, this is, this goes out. You got no control over it. There's no editing it. I mean,
Sure.
It's live radio, and it's like, oh my goodness, here we are, brother, where art thou?
But he was supposedly a whistleblower, right? Wasn't he supposedly like a CIA whistleblower or something like that?
I tell you what, I like Stu. Something was going on there in the beginning. I think he was very honest and had something to deliver. But then afterwards, it got a little crazy. And, I don't want to bang on him. But, I mean, some of the stuff they went into, and I don't know if you remember this, there was the Franco-American Alliance in Chicago that were fighting the Brit intelligence in the United States.
No.
And they had a shootout in Chicago subways.
Oh,
so I called a couple of my friends in Chicago. I'm going, maybe this wasn't a really big news article, but do you get anything, a whiff of anything that had to do with a shootout in the Chicago subways? And they're like, no. And this is the kind of stuff that happened. And that's, I mean, even what's-his-face that ran VT, Veterans Today, Gordon, what's his name?
Gordon, right. Yeah, he had some crazy stories, too.
Half the stuff he put on was garbage.
Yeah.
He's the one who admitted it. I mean, and this is the kind of stuff that doesn't help anything. It may be high theater and fun, but, it belittles everybody who's being serious about what they do.
Right. No, it kind of pollutes the punch bowl, right?
Yeah, but I will say, Stu steered me into a number of interviews that were good. That had to do with that one school in California,
McMartin.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he got a person that was involved in that. So I mean, he was not without, some good information, but where it went, I mean, so that's
the guy's name is Gordon. Gordon Duff. Gordon Duff was Veterans Today. Yeah, he had all kinds of crazy stuff. But do you see the recent FBI drop of McMartin material?
No.
Yeah, no, there was in something else, but it was within the Finders. Have you ever heard of the Finders case?
No. If I did, I've forgotten.
Yeah, it was something that happened in Tallahassee. There was an arrest of 2 guys, and they had little kids in the car. They were like 8 or 9, and they were like savages, unwashed. But there was a drop of the FBI, and inside that drop was the McMartin, one-page McMartin file where they had topography of the entire McMartin preschool, which has now been, it's gone. It was basically plowed over. But they had the tunnels. Yeah. They had a pentagram on a piece of paper. They had, inside of McMartin, they had an internal light that but somebody inside could see. And they had doors that only locked one way. It was crazy. They had some really incredible information. Do you remember who you talked to or you interviewed about McMartin?
It was a woman.
Was it Jackie McGauley?
Yeah, it sounds right. That does sound right.
Yeah, so you actually had her. I tried to get her to talk about it because she was really involved, but she doesn't want to do interviews anymore.
I tell you, the one that had the most gravity, and I mean, was very moving, and probably the deepest I ever got into a high-profile case was what took place in Florida with Terry Schiavo. Does that ring a bell?
Right? Yeah, we talked about that last time. We talked about
We
Shivo
did.
briefly. Yeah, you mentioned her, but that was an intense case. Can you talk about the facts of that and what happened?
Well, we had the brother on once with Pat Anderson, who was a lawyer for them. But there was a Mr. X kind of person who was feeding me information through emails. And I looked at it and I'm like, holy mackerel. And I said to Pat, is this stuff good? She said, yes, it is. And, it's been a while now, and memory doesn't serve necessarily. But what happened was it was questionable whether or not Terry was injured through a domestic abuse situation. Apparently, her husband gave a different description of what happened and where her body was, as opposed to what the police found when they came in. The other thing was interesting is that Judge Greer, who sat on this case, was a investor in a hospice down around Clearwater or St. Petersburg. Now, what's interesting about this was that Terry was being kept in hospice. And you're not supposed to be in hospice unless you're terminal.
Right.
But she wasn't. And the family was saying, what is it to anybody? If you've given up on her, why can't we have her, the Schivos? And that was the battle. And what Pat Anderson said to me one time, it's like, she goes, I mean, they're withholding, I guess, food and drink or whatever. And she said, what's interesting is that in the state of Florida, if you do that with an animal, it's a felony. With an animal, with a pet.
Right.
So they were saying that she is not as bad as everyone says it is. And of course, what I'm saying is also, with Greer being involved in hospice and the hospice that Terry was in, that didn't look all that great. And the question again was whether or not there was a crime at the very core of this. And that's one of the reasons why they didn't want Terry released to the family. But I mean, that's, when you talk about this, and she obviously she died later on. But I mean, that's really grim, and one of the things that Terry said, what Pat Anderson said was, talking about these things about, well, do they have quality of life? Let's see what kind of quality they have. And she said, well, who's going to decide that? And that really is the sticking point time and time again. Who's going to make the decisions as to what's quality?
Right. And that was a huge story. It was all over the TV and everything, whether they were going to, turn off her apparatus, right?
Right. And there's one thing I found really disconcerting. And because we were in the area not far from where all that took place, up in Pasco County, and it was known that I had done a radio show, and I worked in a library in college. And of course, everybody's an academician and has an opinion and such. But what I found that it broke along two lines. People who felt that Terry had a right to be saved, if you will, that the family, what is the harm of the family taking her and trying to care for her? And the others who said, no, I mean, she should just die. I mean, she's useless feeder. And those people, to the last one, were all big time environmentalists and PETA people.
Wow, interesting.
And I mean, I find that very uniform. Because depopulation is a big deal with the radical environmentalists and such. Right. So they had no sympathy for her whatsoever. Yet one of them would like cross the double yellow to avoid a squirrel and get into a head-on crash with three other people.
Right. But it is interesting because oftentimes I think at least in my mind or my outlook, those types of people are typically back to nature, right to life is important or. But it's interesting that they would just pull the plug on somebody, or want to. Who are the people, how would you describe the people who wanted or whose opinion was to keep her alive? How would you describe them?
Practically everyone else.
Everyone else, gotcha.
Yeah, and I mean, everybody's certainly entitled to their opinion, but I was kind of chilled by the fact that those who felt that she should be euthanized were big time, like I said, radical environmentalists and PETA people.
That is interesting, and I think a lot of people don't know that there are a very far strange outliers of these environmentalists. They really don't, they're in the depopulation agenda. They wouldn't mind if a lot of people died. And they ended up, it was a judicial ruling to let her die. Is that correct? Didn't it end up in court? Yeah.
I mean, in the end, it took her. I mean, they cut, I think, everything off, and it took her, I think, like 6 days or more to die.
Wow. So they weren't feeding her or doing anything, huh?
Wow. So that was that. That was when you walk away from, and there's just nothing good about it. You know what I mean? It's sad. It's tragic. And it has its postscript doesn't really bode well for humanity. So
right, and I mean wow. So what do you recollect any other interviews or anything else that kind of kept with you? I mean, you've seen a lot of kind of people come and go. Like I know that some of these personalities are kind of still around. Some of them.
Well, I mean, here's what happened. Because I had started out on this to find out for my own self. I mean, I'm not saying doing the radio shows and stuff. I started off researching as to what is it all about? What is the way that the world really is? What is the truth about the United States? Because I would hear things, and I'm probably one of the last now in my cohort that are going to remember the way things were in the 50s, in the 60s. And, as I said, when I was a kid, I heard stuff, what adults say when they don't think kids are listening. Of course they are. Right. And I never forgot that kind of stuff. And then there were questions I had growing up. And by the time I was in high school, I mean, all hell broke loose. I mean, JFK gets popped in 63. Bobby gets popped in 68?
Right.
Martin Luther King gets popped. And we all sat there like in the cafeteria, like looking around as though,
what's happening? Where did you go to high school?
In Teaneck, New Jersey.
New Jersey. How far outside of New York is that?
About 6 miles across the George Washington.
Far, yeah. Okay.
So, I mean, I mean, it's funny what kids will get used to if they think like it's normal. You know what I mean? Especially abused kids, when they come out, sometimes it's like, oh, no, nobody else gets beaten like this.
Right. No, that's very true. They think their family, every family's like theirs. Yeah, no, that's true.
And I'm sure that's a coping mechanism, and God bless them that they have that to at least survive. And then they find out, no, it's not really like that, Johnny.
Right.
Anyway, with what I was doing, I mean, I was starting to realize that the Patriots and the two networks of note at that time, GCN and RBN, they had all these people coming on talking about the same thing, and it wasn't making sense. And one of the biggest things was, for instance, like I would hear people that would call into one of the shows and say, well, I try to use the Constitution as a defense. And the judge said, if I said it one more time, they'd hold me in contempt. And that made me curious. And when in history class, you'd ask the teachers, like, if people try to use money and influence to get something done, they would call that bribery. So what's the difference between that and lobbyists?
Right.
I mean, structurally, it's the same. And, the teachers would be like, well, and it doesn't make sense. I mean, even the Electoral College, and like, we don't really vote for the president directly.
No.
We have an Electoral College. Well, you got to understand. Well, no, I don't understand. I understand that it was birthed because apparently at that time people were not sophisticated or informed enough to vote. So they created electors. But that isn't the case. It hasn't been for Lord knows like a century, and we still have an Electoral College.
Right.
And of course, what's funny is, and then you realize in 2000 and 2004, when the election wasn't going the way it was supposed to, all of a sudden, in 2000 we had a recount in Florida, and in 2004 there was one in Ohio. And I'm bringing that up because they go to the states with the most amount of electoral votes, so they don't have to scramble across 4 or 5 states. So they picked Florida in 2000, and they picked Ohio in 2004.
Right. So those are the key levers to get Bush back into office both times.
Yeah, I mean, and that what doesn't matter anymore because you have this is what cracks me up. Early voting. When did we decide we couldn't vote on election day? No, we have early voting now, and electronic voting, which of course makes everything a total,
Right.
zero.
Absolutely questionable. Yeah. Intentionally, it's got to be by design, right? Like we
Oh,
don't. Yeah, we don't want you
well,
to have a third party look at the vote. Give me a break.
well, a couple of days ago or a week ago or so, I heard this like little news bite. You know, when you're doing things in the house and you got the news on and you're walking back and forth and you hear things that you might not even pay that much attention to if you were sitting there and looking at it and going into a daze. But it was like, oh, they're lamenting the low number of voters and what they can do about it. And I'm like, well, you can go back and do what you should have undone, give the people a holiday, and they'll vote.
Right.
But they don't want to do that. They
Right.
don't really want it. They
No,
say they do, but they don't.
they
So
don't.
now we have early voting, and this is so that something like 2000 and 2004 will never happen again. They use that early voting, you can bet, as exit polls. They can find out where it's going. It's a sampling.
Yes.
Then they can do their little spinmeister routine so that the voting doesn't go sideways as it did in 2000, 2004.
Right. Oh yeah. No,
And I
it's always been fixed. I mean, I think it always goes back. Don't you think? Even back to Kennedy.
well, we know that one was fixed.
Right. We know that 1960 was
That was
fixed.
when, yeah, that's when I went to bed. That was the first election I remember. And my parents were like Nixon people. And Nixon was looking real good. And I went to bed, not that I care, but that Nixon was going to be president. Next morning, it's like Kennedy's president. It's like, what happened? And they're looking at it, and you're like,
Hey.
what did they know?
Hey, that happened to Trump, Clinton. I was just like, okay, Clinton presidency. I went to bed. I woke up. Trump was president. Same thing happened, man. I didn't expect that to happen.
Well, in '04, I was working a really weird shift at the library because we were shorthanded. I went from 2 p.m. to 2 a.m. So on election night 2004, I get home at 2, I can't go to sleep, right? So I'm watching all the shenanigans in late night voting, and I had to laugh because Mel Fernandez was running for a Senate, or I think a Senate seat, federal, in Florida, and Fernandez was a big Republican cog. I think he came out of HUD, and he was a real crony. So Betty Castor, I believe, was the Castor that was the president of the University of South Florida. I swear I saw this. I'm sitting there, and she gives an acceptance speech, and I'm going, geez, Fernandez lost. Whoa, how did they let that happen? Right? Okay, and the other thing is Arlen Specter's getting his ass kicked in Pennsylvania.
Right.
And I'm going, well, what do you know? Because after Specter did that magic bullet trip, you know what I mean, and sold that stink.
Yeah.
I mean, he was made for life. I mean, he's
made
never
for
gonna
life.
do anything.
Made for life. Yes.
So as the night goes on, it's like 6 a.m. now, and Mel Fernandez gives an acceptance speech. And I'm like, wait a minute, wasn't that Castor? I'm going, am I crazy? Well, I may be crazy, but didn't I see that? And then Arlen Specter comes from behind and wins in Pennsylvania. Going, that's more like it.
Yeah, that's the good one. Have I ever told you my Arlen Specter story? That I was back. Well, here it comes. Back when I was working for John Clark, I don't know if you remember that interview I did with you, but I was delivering that addendum to the Star Report, right? So I did it. I carried all those things to all those offices. So I went into each office and held them out. So I had to go into Arlen Specter's office at the Senate building to go deliver it. And I walked in, and he had the biggest vanity wall that you could ever imagine of him with all these people. And like most vanity walls would be like, oh, there's like 8 things. He had pictures all the way down to right above the top of the chair. So somebody had to have, so he just had him with everything he wanted. And it's just something that I remember is like, oh man, this guy knows everybody. And he had all their pictures on there. But yeah, and I was like, oh man, this is the Arlen Specter. That's him.
I'll never forget that night in '04. I mean, I don't make a habit of staying up, but I mean, I had to. I had no choice. But what I saw, I could not believe. But then I said, you know what? Here's another brick in the wall of what I'm trying to build, and that is, what is it really about?
Right.
And it's corruption and wickedness in high places, to be honest with you.
That's all there is to it. Have you ever read Hunter S. Thompson's comments on the 2000 elections and George H.W. Bush. Can I read this to you? It's incredible. This is Hunter S. Thompson. Quote, "There was one exact moment, in fact, when I knew for sure that Al Gore would never be president of the United States, no matter what the experts were saying. And that was when the whole Bush family suddenly appeared on TV and openly scoffed at the idea of Gore winning Florida. It was nonsense," said the candidate. "Utter nonsense. Anybody who believed Bush had lost Florida was a fool. The media, all of them, were liars and dunces or treacherous whores trying to sabotage his victory. Here was the whole bloody family, laughing and hooting and sneering at the dumbness of the whole world on national TV. The old man was the real tip-off. The leer on his face was almost frightening. It was like looking into the eyes of a tall hyena with a living sheep in its mouth. The sheep's fate was sealed, and so was Al Gore's. The whole presidential election, in fact, was rigged and fixed from the start."
You know, he also wrote a really great book. I don't know if you've read it, but Fear and Loathing and the Campaign Trail, 1972.
Yeah, no, I have not read that. I haven't read most of his stuff, unfortunately.
Well, I tell you, I don't think he believed at that time, as most of us did. I mean, we didn't come out of the cradle thinking everything was rigged. But, I mean, he wrote just a really incisive book with a lot of humor in it. And I'll tell you what, even in the epigraphs he had at the beginning of certain chapters were really moving. And one of them was that "Be Angry at the Sun." That's where I found that poem.
Oh, interesting.
By Jeffers.
Oh, I didn't know that. From Thompson. That's fascinating.
And so, I mean, it was, if you get a chance, that book has not aged. And I think that's worth a read.
I will. I'll take a look if I get a chance.
But, you know, as I went through this whole radio thing, it was right around the time that I had done audios with you. And I'm thinking that's probably 04 through 06 or something like that. I found some stuff by someone that was called The Informer, and it looked really interesting. And I looked around and nobody had interviewed him. So I contacted him and I asked him if he'd be willing to come on and just break it down for all the research that he and his cohort, James Montgomery, did. And I told him, I said, you know what, I kind of understand now the way of the world, but the one thing I was hoping was that the United States was legit, top to bottom, and I found that it wasn't.
Right, yeah.
And I mean, you go right back to, and look at it this way. Like I said about we've been propagandized and believe we can't be propagandized. Everybody, I mean, the public school system, or any education from kindergarten through 12th grade, that is a powerful manipulation tool.
Yes.
And I mean, I'm not blaming the teachers because they went through the same thing, and so they got propagandized as well. And so you go through that, and I mean, it's tough to break. And I understand why people don't. I was just that kind of person. I was like, well, why? How come? And in fact, I'll tell you another thing, too. I had a guy by the name of Rex Curry, who is a Tampa lawyer, and he has a website, rexcurry.net. That's Curry. And I did a number of shows with him about the origins of the Pledge of Allegiance, the salute, and what that was all about. And I swear the only reason why public education allowed the Bible in the schools was to forge a counterfeit amalgam of like God and country. God shed his grace on thee. Right. No, he didn't. And I mean, if you want to talk spirituality, God is no respecter of countries. He sees individuals. He doesn't see countries. There's no country that seeks after the Lord because there's no person that seeks after the Lord. So this bit about having the Bible in the school made that happen. Do you know how many evangelical Christians, and I say that because they're supposed to have read their Bibles, think that patriotism is commanded by God?
All of them?
You know, you can't. I mean, how can any self-respecting person who says they believe on Jesus Christ and his word, how can you look at a guy like Trump and believe he's born again? Are you kidding me?
Well, I think that he does a good job of talking to them. I mean, those are his support base, so I think he caters to them for sure. But
Without a doubt, but you can't erase the record of him and his deeds. I mean, to me, he acts like a drunk uncle. Nobody wants at Thanksgiving, but you have to invite him. I mean, he's not like, I mean, but to act like that much of a lout, I mean, how can anybody say, one, we want him as a president, and two, he's a Christian? I mean, when Jerry Falwell's out,
yeah,
some of them started to support him. I'm going, what are you doing?
right. Hey, they
And it's,
supported George W. Bush too. Oh my God. You know,
well, you know,
he's not a
I think
Christian either.
Christians think, I think Christians think that GOP means God's own party.
Well,
You know
it's
what I mean?
true. Yes, for
No
some strange
Democrats or
reason.
Christians.
Yes.
Just
Yeah.
and it's funny too because I don't know if you allow me to do something here.
Yeah. Of course.
All right, this to me speaks volumes, and it comes from Luke 4:5, and this is the time when the devil was tempting the Lord. And here it is. And the devil taking him taking him up into a high mountain, showed unto him all the kingdoms of the world in a moment of time. And the devil said unto him, all this power will I give thee, and the glory of them, for that is delivered unto me, and to whomsoever I will give it. If thou therefore will worship me, all shall be thine. Now there's two things in here that are telling. One, the word kingdoms. I think Christians think that that's an archaic word and it only meant back then. But when they use the word kingdom, it meant government. It didn't mean the people. And when you take a look in like Strong's Concordance, and it's very interesting that the word kingdom means government.
Interesting.
So what he's saying is all the governments, and he showed them all in one time. That means past, now, and future. Now, if Satan is in control of them, and the Lord did not contradict him, did not refute him, because it's true, until an appointed time when the Lord will take care of things. So at that time, I mean, the devil's giving it to him, and it's straight. So here's what I'm saying. There's nobody good. I'm sorry, but there's nobody that's a born-again Christian or somebody who really believes on Jesus who's in public office. It is impossible. You go into a cesspool, you're going to get doo-doo on you, and that's all there is to it. So how in the world can you look at these people who profess to be Christians and are in government? It's in Satan's control. I mean, the only decent people I ever knew that were in a congressional or a senatorial seat, and I thought really were for real, lasted like one term because they couldn't take it.
Yeah, no, there's very short termers. You get in and out real fast. Or if they buck the system, the party system is there to destroy, the nail that sticks up out of the headboard. You know, that's really what they do. They do it all the time. They can actually just destroy party members if they want to. They just don't give them any money and run something against them. There's all kinds of techniques they got.
I mean, you get told this is the way it is, bub, and if you don't play ball, you're gone.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to be ostracized, and you're just going to go back home.
Yeah, well, it's a sweet job. You should see how many resignations there are in Congress. Like, I just decided to go home and be with my family. Yeah, right. Yeah, sure. It's a cush job. You get paid like $187,000 a year. Why would you ever quit? You know.
So, are you saying that those people understood how dirty it was and said, "I'm not doing this"?
Either that, or they got caught with something, or they just insulted somebody in the party, or something happened wrong. I mean, when I was there, there just a lot of real dirty stuff happened. A lot of sexual inappropriateness and stuff like that, and those people were just asked to leave very quietly. There was no fanfare. There was no report in any media. They just decided to leave for one reason or another. Because somebody, either the party or somebody in the ethics thing said, we got stuff on you. We can either prosecute you or you can quit. You know, or we can have a hearing or you can quit. And so they just quit. In some instances. But there's also instances where, just like you said, you really go after the Federal Reserve, you're a goner. There's very few people who said certain things and survived very long, you know. I'm surprised that the Rand Paul and Ron Paul have survived so long with their criticism of the Federal Reserve. So.
Yeah, but it's funny because Ron Paul wasn't going anywhere. I mean, he would win his seat time and time again, but they just let him hang around because he wasn't doing anything.
Well, true.
He never mounted any kind of campaign. So I mean, he really didn't, he didn't mess up the furniture, so you can let him,
Right.
stay around.
Right. Well, that's
But
true.
one other thing I just wanted to say to you about this that I thought was kind of funny when you talk about the nature of government, and it also comes from the Bible. And I mean, if there's humor in the Bible, I think you could see the humor in this. But to me, it explains what government is. And this comes at the time when the tribes didn't want Jehovah to be both their spiritual and secular leader as he was, which is why he tithed, because that was for the secular side of things. They wanted a king like everyone else did.
Right.
And they talked to Samuel, and poor Samuel's like, "Oh man, I got to go to Jehovah and tell him this."
Right.
So here he goes. He comes up to Jehovah, and of course Jehovah already knows what he's going to tell him because he's Jehovah. You know what I mean?
Right.
And this is what he responds to him. He goes, he tells Samuel, "Don't worry about it." And in 1 Samuel, I think it's 8:11, it says, "And he said," meaning Jehovah, "This will be the manner of the king that shall reign over you. He will take your sons and appoint them for himself, for his chariots, and to be his horsemen, and some shall run before the chariots. And he will appoint him captains over thousands and captains over fifties, and will set them to ear his ground and to reap his harvest and to make his instruments of war and instruments of his chariots. And he will take your daughters to be confectionaries and to be cooks and to be bakers, and he will take your fields." And it goes on, "And he will take the tenth of your seed, and he will take your manservants, and he will take a tenth of your sheep." And the last verse is, "And ye shall cry out in that day because of your king, which ye shall have chosen you, and the Lord will not hear you in that day." But I mean, when he goes through this stuff, we'll take it, and I'm like looking at ourselves, go, "Well, here we are."
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No question.
I just thought that was a loaded passage.
Well, I think it's important. I mean, I think there's a lot of questions about, the current U.S. government. Why is there a District of Columbia? Why is all this? I mean, we were talking before about the federal judicial system and all kinds of, there's all kinds of ends of court. There's a lot of interesting elements to the law that the public would probably be surprised to find out about.
And they really don't want to find out. That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
If you actually, and you probably have gotten a chance to talk to people you're not really sure about, but you find that there's maybe a time for it, and you go in it meekly, and you realize that they've been thinking pretty much the same thing, but then when they get too close to the fire, it's like, "Oh, no, no." I remember Randy Morgan's years ago had one of the best sayings I ever heard, and he goes, "People love to be beguiled." There you go.
That's right. That's really true.
One more time.
Still true. Still true.
So with the Informer, we started to do a number of shows that got deeper and deeper into the nature of government, and he had it with documentation, and really what it was from the very beginning. Even our founding fathers were anything but patriarchal, if you know what I mean. I mean, Jefferson's got to be the biggest hypocrite that ever hit the streets. Who else would have the temerity to go ahead and make his own Bible?
Right. Good point.
Yeah,
he excised all kinds of important passages. Anything having to do with miracles was taken out, right?
I'm gonna bet that he's in a dirt room.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing with Washington and them. And then Gordon Comstock and Eric the blacksmith got involved in going down other tributaries. Gordon did a lot of stuff that Gustav Myers wrote. Eric went into the Anti-Federalist papers. Nobody even knows it was an Anti-Federalist group who were warning about the Constitution. And that's one of the things I remember talking to I-Man and saying that there were a number of the founders, if you will, guys like Patrick Henry and such, that didn't think it was a good idea but signed on anyway. And I said to him one time, I said, I-Man, if they knew it, why in the world did they sign it? He goes, because above all else, they were lawyers. And there you go. You look at the people who supposedly wrote the Constitution, and I mean, how many of them were slavers? You're talking about freedom of human beings. There were slavers, there were bankers, there were land barons, and this is the normal hoi polloi.
Right.
Now, another interesting thing, by the way, and I'll give you links for this if you want to put them up. There's a book called Sources of the Constitution by C. Ellis Stevens. It was written in 1894. And in it, and I mean, he's not trying to do anything except lay it straight. I mean, he is a Brit. There's no two ways about it. But he wrote that the creation of the Constitution in the United States was not from the ground up. It was a knockoff of the British Constitution. So when those guys went down there for those 3 days in Philadelphia, don't think they wrote the whole thing right then and there. It was already pretty much put together. And here's the statement from Ellis. As I go through my notes. All right, here we go. An assembly could hardly have been convened in the United Kingdom more English as to race and political training than that made up of the 53 delegates who composed the Federal Convention. And it says, but it is beginning to be realized that the Constitution of the United States, though possessing elements of novelty, is not, after all, the new creation that this idea would imply. It is not, properly speaking, the original composition of one body of men, nor the outcome of one definite epoch. It is more and better than that. It does not stand in historical isolation, free of antecedents. It rests upon very old principles, principles laboriously worked out by long ages of constitutional struggle. The other thing is this, and you are a lawyer, right?
Yeah.
Is not our whole system of law based on English civil code?
Yeah, it's common law, right?
Right. So why would not, I mean, it would follow then if we were going to take a governing document, we stayed with what we came with, and that was what the Brits had done.
Yeah, we're still based upon all the British stuff, British material, common law. It all goes back to that. Precedent, all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
but Americans don't get taught that. They don't get taught what you just said about the predicates to the Constitution, the old world predicates, or what they fought for in England. They don't ever hear that. They just hear.
But isn't it because we have our culture, our history has nearly deified the founders?
Yes, no question.
And along with that comes, they're such great men. They sat down and they knocked out the Constitution in 3 days.
Right. Well, they're our founding fathers, right? That's the means they're capital F, capital F.
But here's the greater insult. Nobody appointed them to go down. There was no vote to send them down there. They just did it. Now, some say they were appointed by their governors and all that of the states. Okay, fine. But the point is the people had nothing to do with who went down there. However, they were told that they were going down there to tweak the Articles of Confederation. All right? Not supplant it with the Constitution. Now, even if the Articles of Confederation weren't going to be doable in time to come, you still don't lie to the populace. You don't tell them you're going to do one thing and do completely something else, and that's what they did. And that spawned a whole bunch of revolts and protests around the country because most of the colonists who fought for the Federal Army did it because of the notion that they were going to have separate states. It would have been more like a Swiss canton situation. They didn't want to be part of a big thing.
Right.
So what happened was, according to the Informer, the Brits funded the colonies. They did. They put up the money, starter money, and they wanted their return. And they frankly told the founders, who had businesses over in England and elsewhere, and they were told that things are going to get really rough for them if they didn't go ahead and corral the 13 states, because England was not in any way, shape, or form going to chase after 13 different entities to get their money. So they told them, you better do something about it or we'll come over and this time be really serious. So they created the Constitution foremost to federate the 13 states. So what are the colonists who were these new citizens of the United States who fought for not what they had back in England, didn't want that or what their fathers had.
Right.
They got turned around and they got screwed right away. They didn't want a federal government and they got one. And later on, they didn't want a federal bank and they got one.
Right.
And so you had all these rebellions that popped up. And I guess the most famous of them all is the Shea Rebellion in Massachusetts. And then it gets even better. When these guys come home from the army and now have to make something out of their farms, which they haven't been near for who knows how long, they get told, hey, you owe taxes. They're like, what are you kidding me? We were busy fighting for you. And he's like, sorry, but you owe. And then he started foreclosing. This is the new country. You know, the bastion of freedom in a new way. And this is what happened right out of the chute. And then Washington, president, and Hamilton, Secretary of Treasury, I guess at that time, they lead a federal troops into Western Pennsylvania and kick some hillbillies around because their distilleries were giving Washington's back east too much competition.
Competition, right? Interesting.
You have a president and a secretary of treasury that's going to come out. I mean, are you kidding me? But this is the way it started off, and it's never really changed.
Yeah, but the whole thing about even the revolution itself was about money, about taxation, about cash, about where they're going to take their money. It was a rich man's, and all the guys who were signing were all land. I mean, Washington himself was a huge landowner.
Again, yeah, I mean, this was an elite war. I mean, elite started war, and who fights it? The good old peasants.
The peasants, as usual, right? The peasants do it. And peasants get to propagandize and fight it.
And
for freedom, yeah.
But we've had it better than most in this world, and there's no two ways about it. And I'm not kicking our government just because I'm a malcontent. I now realize after I went through this for the last 15 years that it's the nature of government, and it never changes. Yeah. We just get told it is because, we're Americans and we tell the truth. Right. No, you don't. Right. And that's all I needed to know, that it's not going to get any better, that there's not going to be any kind of new epoch that's going to arise out of anything. History is a rerun of the same failed social experiments. They always collapse. It always happens like that. And that's what we're here now. The only thing I think that's different now is that our time, I think, is at hand. And we've only been around for not even 300 years.
Right. I think we're the longest surviving so-called republic that's on the earth now. I don't know how long the Roman Republic lasted for, but yeah. I mean, I think we're things are going to be very interesting. I mean, we were talking in the pre-show about what's happening these days around the country, and you made a reference to a book I wasn't aware of by Isaac Asimov. What was the name of the book again?
No, it's a short story that you can find online entitled The Winnowing.
The Winnowing. And how many pages is it? Like, how short of a short story?
Oh, it's a short.
Oh, okay.
It was really done well. It was contained in a I think what might have been a compilation of short stories called I can't now. Memory serves. And there was another one in there too called The Centennial Man. But you can find The Winnowing online. So, and I'm not saying that Asimov was for this, but I'm always amazed at how certain writers like Philip Dick, take a look at a lot of them, Burgess, Bradbury, Huxley, Orwell, all did futuristic works and never portended anything but gloom and doom.
Right.
It's never, it's going to get better. No, it's not. So with Asimov, what the story was that there was a group of powerful, shadowy people who wanted to depopulate. So they decided to screw around. This is like the real short version. They screwed around with the lipoprotein in grains and just let them go out, which at that time when I read it, I'm like, okay, is this what GMO is? And what was going to happen was it was going to sicken the population. The strong would survive, the not so strong would get sick and recover, and anyone else would die. And the people would not know where this is coming from. They would just figure it's an epidemic. So think about that and what's happening now. I thought it was here with the GMO because nobody knows what in the world's going to happen. How many people were sickened because they ate something they didn't know they were allergic to?
Right. Yeah. No, you don't. I mean, you don't know how many of these illnesses are because of that, because things have been tinkered around with.
And I got to say, one of the biggest disappointments in my life is taking a look at what's going on above us, and has been going on above us for at least 20 years. And nobody says, that isn't contrails, man. That's aerosolized in space.
Yeah.
And what struck me as funny was I had a friend that was a pilot for Continental, and I said to him, "I'm going, could commercial airlines spray?" He says, "No." He goes, "They can't." He says, "You can't mess around with, what is it?
Rolls Royce.
Rolls Royce engines, excuse me,
Right.
Because the tolerances wouldn't allow it." Now, one time when I was skating at a what they call a well field down in Florida. Those well fields are of water, not of oil. And I took a telephoto lens with me. I didn't have any film. I just wanted to use it as binocular. And I was just hoping I could catch one of them because the horizon down in Florida is just so vast. I mean, you can see a lot of stuff. And I saw one of these unmarked white, C-130s or whatever flying overhead, and I put the lens on it. And sure enough, out of 2 back dispensaries came the trails. I saw them kick in.
Wow.
Now, I would talk to him about it, and he was saying, no. I'm going, look. I go, Pete, we lived in Western New York. We were within a triangle of LaGuardia, Kennedy, and Newark. We played stickball and football and hockey. We were outdoors all the time. We never saw tic-tac-toe boards above us. But, he defended it, and I'm like, all right, Pete, but I mean, we're not friends anymore. But, but I mean, there's 2 people who came from the same place. And, of course, he went into the industry, but he also, doesn't want to believe that things do go bump in the night. But I had a laugh. It was about 2 months ago. There was an article about what we're going to do about the pollution that commercial airline travel was creating. And they showed pictures of contrails. But that can't come out of commercial airliners. So, in other words,
right,
they went ahead and verified what we all suspect, and that is that's not normal.
It's not normal, right? No, I've seen incredible stuff here in LA, no question. I mean, what are your thoughts about this current situation with, what's happening around the world?
Well, what I'll say is this. You can have people email me at Vyzygoth@hotmail.com if they want this. There is a book that was written in 2007. It's out in PDF form called Virus Mania. Some very serious heavy hitters that are anti-vaccines and such wrote it. And what they said that we're in an era not so much of viruses but of fear. We'll leave it at that. The way I feel about it is that these viruses just don't happen organically. So somebody's cooking it. Now, why this happened in Wuhan, I don't know. You don't even know if later on this is going to be used as some reason to go to war with China. I mean, it's not that far-fetched.
It's not. No way.
In fact, John Pilger has a documentary out there which kind of speaks of what we were talking about last time around, that there's going to be a third world war. It's going to happen on the Eurasian continent. It's going to be at least with China and most likely Russia. So that's a possibility. I always thought that we would blame them for some kind of EMP that would knock the grid out, and also banking. So, you think you had $7,000 in the bank, guess what? It ain't there anymore.
Right.
And that's still on the horizon. But what I think is that it's cooked. And I kind of believe that this wasn't disseminated through airline travel, that they strategically made releases. Now, everything else after that, I don't know. I mean, but the mainstream media has done nothing but just bang the drum for like, oh, my God, we're all going to die. This is the bubonic plague. It's finished with, blah, blah, blah. In the meantime, you hear reports about China who's getting back to normal. I mean, when we hear all this, it's like, oh, we have to go through that thing. Is that like time zones? Now we have to do what they did. But, I mean, we're going crazy here. And like China's like getting back to normal.
Right.
Why so many people died in Italy? I don't know. But this whole thing stinks. And I'm afraid that this is going to be the new normal. Because you can see what it did. I mean, I'm watching day after day, everybody's shutting stuff down. It's like turning into the streets of On the Beach. Desolate streets with papers blown in the wind.
Yeah, no, it's so there's some surreal feelings here in LA, no question. I mean, it's used to just be bumper to bumper traffic.
So if you can do that,
yeah.
Well, I mean, if you can stop a country like that, I mean, who needs domestic terrorism anymore?
True.
I mean, you don't need 9/11s if you can do this. Look at all that it wrought, without even having to make believe there were bad guys who had box cutters and took over planes. Blah,
so
blah, blah.
fast, too. I mean, Gates on the Horizon is going to put a tattoo on you saying you've been tested or not, That's going to be the new thing. Do you have this? Do you not have this? That'll be either a card or something.
Yeah.
So, that's not
You
that
know,
far on the horizon.
I remember in like some of my first history classes in college, all those years ago, I remember the professor saying one of the first and probably foremost elements of a totalitarian government is restricted travel. I just remember that.
Right.
And so I'm looking at this now going, oh, this is going to be interesting,
Right.
You have to have the special ID now to fly. Like, what is that going to do? All right, what is that making me safe from? So, we're getting closer and closer to let's see your papers.
Yeah, no, it's not that far. I mean, here in California, the governor's saying, I can go to martial law if I feel like it. So, I mean, he's hinting at it. I don't know if that'll happen. I bet if you asked the average Californian 2 weeks ago that we'd be on a lockdown, I bet 95% would say no way. So,
well, I mean, it's kind of fuzzy. I mean, if you call it the National Guard, is that martial law? I mean, technically, yeah.
Right.
Because there's nobody else around. I mean, we don't have any troops here anymore, I mean,
well, that's a good point. That's a great point. Yeah, it's there's a lot of changes that could happen very fast. Very fast.
Well, there's a scenario that goes along with what Orwell wrote about, and also like we talked the other day about. Now you're gonna have to tell me who it is again. The guy that wrote Lord of the World.
Lord of the
Benson,
World.
Robert Benson.
Oh, Benson, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Benson.
Now I bought a book once from the Rosicrucians out of, I believe it's Quarryville, Pennsylvania. I believe that's where it is. If you go to soul.org, soul.org, you'll find it's the official Rosicrucian site because they field the ones that are in San Jose.
Yeah.
I think there's another headquarters there.
Yeah, I know the one in San Jose very well. They used to take us there as kids, elementary school day trips to go get indoctrinated.
Well, these in Pennsylvania consider themselves the true descendants of the German Rosicrucians, and they're the real guys, and you're not. So,
well, that's what they all say. Right.
Well, two things that were really interesting about it. I get this book called The Menissus Chronicles. And Menissus is spelled M-I-N-I-S-I-S, like man ISIS. That's interesting.
Right.
And it was a futuristic book. I think the author's name, which was obviously a pseudonym, was Brewington. But they portrayed a scenario that I thought was very realistic. And it said that there came a time when the old world would have its vengeance on the new world. And that we would be invaded. And the only thing that would stop the fighting is that there was a geological global cataclysm. So that places that were high were now made low, places that were low were now made high, and the invading armies would had to return to their own homelands. And I'm looking at that and I'm saying, you know what? And the reason also was because there was nobody here. All our troops were elsewhere.
Interesting.
So I looked at that and that always stuck with me. And I do believe that that's pretty close to what's going to happen. The other thing that they did that I remember, there was a book called like the 68th Conclave that came out in 1913. And in it they talk about the new world here, right, would be completed when the capstone was placed atop the truncated pyramid, right?
Right. Uh-huh.
And they said that would only happen when Mexico would be brought back into the fold as in days of old. And so in 1913, they were predicting pretty much what we have now. What we're going to have is a North American Union with Mexico being with us.
Interesting.
And so there's another thing. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But,
well, things will be interesting. That's for sure. I don't think that there'll be a lack of subjects to study as things change in the near to medium future. Yeah.
But now, I mean, I'm not kicking any ass. I'm not going anywhere anymore. I mean, my day is done. But I mean, for people, I mean, I would just say this. First of all, you can't change what's going to be. Again, if you were in Poland in 1936 and were a 6-year-old kid, what a bummer when the Gustafs came in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no kidding, huh?
You can't. Yeah, I mean, it's the luck of the draw. You can't ask why. I mean, that's the way it is. And I think we're coming to an era that's not going to be very pleasant, and there's nothing you can do to change it. But I would say this: there are two things I definitely would want to protect in the times that come, and that's my health and my money. And that's about all you can do because I'm still going to hang on to cash because God knows what's going to happen one day when you wake up and you realize that the grid burnt all your computerized money. I
Right.
mean,
Well, the Chinese are making runs on banks already, so I mean, it's not outside of the realm of possibility that your banking won't work. So, but we're Vyzygoth. We are at 55 minutes. Is there anything else that you'd like to add, or anything else you want to bookend this with?
hey, you want to give me another 55 minutes?
We
But no, it's all
could.
right. Everything's fine.
We
I mean,
could.
I got to say, you got to live your lives no matter what. But there are things
Right.
you can do. One of them, obviously, in this day and age, keep your health. I mean, I stay away from vaccinations and anybody who wants to do such. I really don't go to the doctor at all unless I really have to. I mean, I mean, if I want to get sick, I'll go to a doctor's office. That's pretty
Right.
much what it looks like to
Well,
me.
good
And I
point.
want anybody, I mean, I'm trying to make it through life without a surgery. I think that would be something worthy of pursuit. So,
Would agree with that as well. Would agree with that as well. Then you said your email was vyzygoth@hotmail.com?
yeah,
It's
you have that
VYZYGOT. Yeah, I have that.
right.
If somebody wants to get in contact with you or see what kind of books you can send them, that's probably the best way to do it.
Yeah, I'll give you the links. But if they are interested in seeing that,
Oh, no, put the links.
um,
I'll put them on the show. I put the links from the last interview on YouTube, so I can put it on this one for sure. But anyway,
so anyway, I appreciate this time.
I appreciate you as well. I
Uh,
appreciate your time, and I'm glad we had this little follow up. You can share all that knowledge you accrued over all that time. It's I think it's helpful to the people out there, out in podcast land. It's evergreen, so somebody can find it 2-3 years from now, whatever.
yeah, and I mean, for me, it was a journey accomplished. I wish I had found something different. It was not a pleasant thing. I wasn't looking for it. I'm not, I don't, I don't revel in chaos. But what it is what it is, and that's why I'm saying. I mean, my feeling is the only way out is up. I mean, the cavalry ain't coming, but Jesus is there. So,
Awesome. That's a perfect way to end it. Again, Vyzygoth, internet legend. Thanks so much, man.
thank you.
All right, take care.